It's me, Vera, here to remind you that this is an adult podcast. That means we're going to deal with tough topics. Take a break if you need it, and be kind to yourself, because we sure won't be.
Hi guys, how are you? Welcome to Gary, Indiana by Night, a Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition podcast. I gotta kick my cat off my lap because it's making me very difficult. Yeah, you don't hate me, you love me. Welcome back to Cracked Crown, a Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition podcast. As always, I'm your storyteller, Mike Martin. Today, joined by the lovely Bub Josh. I looked at your name on Riverside, and I was about to call you Bob Kowalski, but not so much. Jason and
that's
Dot,
me.
and hello everybody. I mean, honestly, Bob made an impression. It's hard to let go of looking at you and seeing Bob.
It really is.
You may notice that we're missing a Mark today. Mark will be back next week, and his character is off taking care of some things around Gary, Indiana. And we will be doing a one-shot, correct, with me and Mark to kind of cover what he's been doing since he is busy today and can't quite make the show. So there will be, don't worry, we'll take a look at what Max has been up to during the missing hours while we play. Beyond that,
to say Adelaide's busy.
Yeah, Adelaide is definitely going to be busy. She's along the ride with Max. I'm sure they're setting something up to keep her safe and Gary. Other than that, though, hey guys, thank you guys so much for supporting the show. We're excited to continue doing this for as long as we possibly can. And the reason we can is because of all your support over at patreon.com/podbynight. Money makes the world go round. Okay. And with money comes happiness and also the ability to keep doing this show. So if you want to support us directly, you could do so on patreon.com/podbynight. Dot completely redid the whole thing. It's nice and neat and completely updated. It looks great. Check out all the rewards you can get over there. And if you want to support us some other way than Patreon, right here on Twitch is the other best way to do so. Subscribing will get you emotes. It puts us on the path to partnership, which is something we're, kind of gunning for on the channel. And all the money that goes into the Twitch channel just goes right back to the cast. Particularly the cast of, look at these, segue after segue, SOS Season 3, which is something we announced a couple weeks ago, which is the next big show that's going to be here on the Pod by Night Twitch channel. If you don't know what we're talking about, our very first vampire campaign, the BubTalks, Josh, and I all played together, was Sounds of Silence way back 3 or 4 years ago on the Roll For It Twitch. We did 2 seasons with a 3-season arc in mind, and now we're able to finally finish that arc 2 years after season 2 has come to a close. We'll be streaming it here on Pod by Night, but the VODs will be available about 2 days later for free over at Roll For It's YouTube page. We figure might as well put it over on YouTube with the other 2 seasons so we can kind of keep everything in the same place and people can binge that entire story when it's all said and done. Right now, that is slated for early December. We don't have a hard date yet, right? No. Oh, we do. What's the hard date? When's our first episode? I forgot.
Yeah, we do.
He's got to turn up for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say you guys show up, and I'm just sleeping.
Date is Friday.
Is it a Friday, not Saturday?
Friday, December 7th or 8th. Hang on, I got to look at a calendar. Oh, I'm sorry, Saturday. You're correct. Not Fridays. I just happen to be getting our Friday nights back. The first week. Oh, so no, it's the 3rd.
Oh, God, that's so close.
Friday, December 3rd.
That is
everybody.
So close. That's Yeah, I am very. You have no idea.
Did y'all hear how excited Mathis got?
Last of that story. Anyway, that's a big thing too, and to pay the cast for that, that's kind of where the Twitch funds are going directly to pay the cast for SOS, because SOS isn't really a part of Pod by Night's world and stuff, but we want to make sure we pay our cast and the like. Beyond that, we've got merch as always. There's a link tree you can go check out on our Twitter. And if you've been enjoying the shows or you're new and jumping on, we have quite a few new people that have kind of popped up. Our Discord's free to join. Go jump over to our Discord, join the community. We've got a bunch of rooms where you can talk spoilers and theories and past events and plot lines that are coming back to haunt them. And if you're part of the Patreon and on the Discord, You get access to a secret little room where only the patrons and us are there to chat, as well as, if you're on the right tier, access to the community game rooms that Josh is running over on the Discord. Which
exists in the same universe as Mathis' stories, so you can watch people role play and make up little stories around, you know, things that happen in the show and have a good time together. There's already a really wonderful bunch of role players in there, and they're having a good time.
What's like the biggest thing that's happened recently in the community game?
Biggest thing recently?
Dot immediately recoiled, so that can't be a good sign.
One of the factions in Gary has totally secretly joined up with vampire hunters to go and mess with people. That's not good for anyone, but it is a good time.
I just, you'd think the Kindred would learn that doesn't quite work out for them.
I told them, like, this might go really badly for you, and they're like, yeah, we know. So they're in all the way. It's very exciting.
Well, yeah, there's you may see like little hints of your activities in the background of the main show. So if not, though, there's a whole plot line happening over in the community stuff. Other than that, I think that's everything. Did I hit everything? I just want to make sure. I'm trying to think. I feel like I got it all.
Yeah, that was slick.
Okay. Jason, welcome back, by the way. Thank you for rejoining us. We'll be seeing Jason here for a little while, I think. Bob's got some secrets to tell at some point.
Yeah.
So we'll get to
just
that
a little
eventually. Okay. That all said, if that's all said and done, then let's play. If everybody's good, then let's set the scene, rein things in, and see what our coterie is up to. Madam Vera, we're almost here, is the voice that breaks the silence and begins our episode. After John's words fill our kindred's ears, you can hear the roaring of an engine, the tires on asphalt, and lights blurring by overhead. A highway stretches before you. Patches of worn paint and chipped away asphalt lie ahead, indicating very little money has been put into the infrastructure here. But as you continue to drive, and Vera perhaps peeks forward through the window, what you see is a sign. It's large, green, faded certainly, and with it says Gary, Indiana, home of Michael Jackson. We can never say goodbye. With musical notes on the corners, a white glove sat on front. And as you whir by that sign, our camera kind of lingers and pans up to it. We see a clear shot. And in the distance, flickering lights of a small town, Gary, Indiana.
Well, at least he was a good dancer.
John doesn't actually reply to that. He's got his hands at 10 and 2. He's hunched a bit, and he's got about his upper lip is the only thing that's like goes above the wheel, as he's so hunched that like anything lower than that, it can't be seen. And he's just kind of driving quietly with the roads themselves. At this point, the further away you got from Chicago, the more empty they became. And as Indiana falls into Gary, Indiana rather, falls into view on this cloudy, moonlit night, you see perhaps why, even at this far out, rundown buildings seem to line the outsides as you get closer and closer. Evidence of an old iron steel factory. It's hard to tell out this far, but there does seem to be rundown factories within eyesight as you crawl closer on the highway.
I've done some Googling. This place is well known for steel and the Jackson 5. You're welcome. And he like waves his smartphone around.
He kind of says that to everybody. All the kindred are kind of in the back, and we see Vera closer to where she can speak with John. We see Duke, I imagine, standing there patiently. And Bob, when Bob is relaxing, when Bob is not engaged in conversation, like what's Bob's posture? Is he like a laid back, kicks up his back against the wall with a foot up? Is he always attentive and paying attention? When Bob is kind of left to his own devices, what do we see?
He's never attentive. He's always distracted. He's always looking at the paper, or trying to look up the latest sports scores, or he sneaks the secret cell phone he's got that only has sports apps on it.
Would you look at that? The Bears lost to the Falcons Wow.
Out of curiosity, is that something Sean literally looked up and would? And
Oh
has
yeah.
No
He's on
clue?
the smartphone. He's like, I don't make up the scores, dude.
The refs were paid off on that game.
I mean, it looked pretty fair to me.
I don't know.
How
What's
quickly
your
does it become
eyesight
obvious
like?
that Sean may not know football very well?
It's 2020. Yeah, I don't know American football very well.
Yeah, the only football there is.
No.
And we lose everybody that listens to this
Yeah,
podcast.
and all of a
Bye.
sudden we have no virus. Yeah, Bob, as you kind of like argue back and forth with Sean, it becomes very quickly obvious that this man does not know American football at all and is simply parroting a score he probably saw on his phone. Your conversation falls flat with him quickly.
As it always does with that kid.
Hence.
Bob, do you happen to know if the ex-Princess Humble Abode is industrial factories?
It is not. He did not live in an industrial factory, no.
No, I mean, that sounds pretty, that sounds pretty cool, but nope. Not happening.
I was thinking, depending upon our luck already, in the last 24 hours, we were destined for an industrial factory.
Can I get from just Bob? Let me open my roll 20. As you get closer to Gary, Indiana, I mean, you've been in Chicago for quite some time at this point. You'd be the only one that can make this roll. Give me, I don't know how this is going to be good for Bob, but give me your choice of either an academics intelligence or a streetwise intelligence. Intelligence because it's a memory specifically. It just depends on how you learn it. So whatever's better for you, you're welcome to make that roll. With that success, nothing particularly important comes to mind. Again, no, he didn't live in a big fucking warehouse. However, like most princes, as far as you're aware, his residence was rather luxurious for Gary. We'll put it that way. It was luxurious for Gary, Indiana. And he's been running Gary. Before he disappeared, Modius took Gary, Indiana by, I think he's had it since the early 90s. He's been Prince of Gary. If that matters to you to share, but beyond
That's
that,
a good amount of time to sink in here. Yeah, since the 90s. And
but on that, is there any other conversation that the kindred would like to have with one another, or shall we cut? I see. It looks like Duke is thinking. I know that face on Bub rather well at this point. There is I think I want to say something, but he's not. Let's see.
It's Duke has been pensive since leaving the estate.
That's a good point, actually. You've been on the road probably tonight 4 hours or so. I'm actually curious what the drive from Gary to Chicago is. I imagine something like that. Yeah, has Duke been very quiet the whole time? Oh, well, Gary's 45 minutes away.
Yeah, it's really close. Really close.
Yeah.
Duke has been quite self-absorbed with some local economy research regarding Gary. Gary was not in the playbook at all.
None.
Wasn't even on board of his knowledge. It was just outside of that scope. So he's been industrious in trying to study as much about Gary as he possibly can, figuring out what is an angle that he can work while moving to this location. So unless he's directly spoken to, he stays rather studious on the paperwork that he's organized in front of himself. Quite a pensive brow, like furrowed look.
So Duke has had approximately 48 hours to do some as deep dive as he can into Gary with what resources in Chicago, which granted were rather great. You had quite a bit at your fingertips. It's honestly a lack of time that Duke curses in his inability to get what he can, as much detail as he can. But we still see him standing there pensively, a few papers in his hand as he's quietly paging through all of them, keeping to himself. Is there anybody who does want to speak with Duke, or do you all leave Duke kind of to his own? Well, Bob may see nothing different with Duke acting kind of how he's acted since you've met him. Sean and Vera would notice the change. For many, it's a subtle change in how he's holding himself, but for somebody who's known Duke so long, it's an obvious change, but importantly, it can be a perhaps an alarming change, knowing Duke's history.
Vera very clearly asked Duke to look into the financial situation of Gary for this very reason. So she is not going to stop his flow. He's in his groove.
Can you give me an academics intelligence roll? Unless you will, investigation would also work. An investigation intelligence roll would be acceptable as well. Does Sean also leave him to his own devices?
For a bit. Sean will eventually pipe up.
5 successes.
Yeah.
Not a crit, but still, 5 is a huge roll. I will still pose the question: do you want to spend a willpower to re-roll the 3 failures that you rolled?
Sure. Yeah, I think I will.
So you messy criticaled. So you have like, oh my god. So you did
7 successes.
Jesus Christ. 5, 6. No, because you did more than that because you rolled another 10. So you criticaled with your
successes.
Yeah. So you have 9 successes total. Duke is talented. Vera knows that, and that's why she brought him on. Sean is aware of that, which is why he tries to stay on Bob's good side. Efficient, to the point, almost like a homing missile. 48 hours may not be a lot for many, and sure, Duke wishes he had more time than 48 hours to dig into the real depths of Gary and where it comes from, but still in those 48 hours, Duke can find a lead, and he can pull on that string until he is no longer allowed to pull. And in that, you learn quite a bit about Gary and its financial situation. Perhaps the thing that, with 9 successes and a crit, that immediately pulls your attention and probably what eats up a majority of this night prepping to leave and actually sitting in the vehicle is a connection through a couple of shell companies. Names that sounded familiar, maybe you've heard once or twice, that caused you to go back into your own paperwork from New York, and the things you were looking into in terms of the organized crime families within New York and the power struggles that were happening, but most importantly, that one time you ran into a lupine and barely escaped with your lives. There you found shell companies, arms dealers, and one of them, do you have those written down? I gave you a few names. The name that sticks out is a name you saw also within New York. However, this particular company seems to have only been recently operating within Gary, Indiana within the past 12 months, a little under a year. And that corporation's name is Iron Eagle Arms, a new weapons company that has made quite a stand in New York and is a rather big player within the firearms industry in the United States. For some reason or another, it seems to be moving into Gary. And as far as you can tell, Gary's population only continues to decline. People continue to move away. Businesses continue to shutter. Why? And for the most part, it seems people are avoiding moving in with new businesses. But you were able to, through those 48 hours, draw a very jagged line between them and New York and their new appearance here in Gary.
Does it seem as if there is a paper line or a line that I can follow directly to Chicago through this?
Not through Chicago. However, stumbling over my words. Not directly. However, they have existed in Chicago for well over a decade, and it wouldn't surprise you if that's where they're maybe expanding from. But that's all a hunch of Duke's if he has that hunch.
Okay. All right. So Iron Eagle Arms, a weapons manufacturer.
Yes, you were able to, and as the weapons manufacturer that you were able to connect to the mob that seemed to harbor that particular lupine.
The lupine. Mm-hmm. Oh, gotcha. Okay.
That was the big thing from New York that you learned about this one, that their paperwork through shell companies also led to this and a few others. So you know that there's a connection there somewhere. Just do.
Okay, I think I'm going to hold on to that until we are situated outside of our move.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to let them know prior to meeting up with your contact, or do you want to wait?
I'm going to wait.
Okay, cool. So, unless anybody else speaks up, the drive continues, but doesn't continue for much longer. As you pass through the city limits of Gary and you truly can see the buildings that surround you at this point, what you see is depressing. A huge, abandoned, decayed building made of brick, arched windows, and at some point would have probably been a gorgeous school. But now, on its north side, The bricks fall away, leaving a huge hole that walks into an area that you can see where spray painting and bottles and a bunch of other trash litter the floor. As you continue down, yet another, the Horace Mann High School, another school of Gary, completely fallen and disheveled. Its auditorium basically vandalized to non-use, the seats ripped from their places. And as you continue to go deeper and deeper, this is a similar theme. Brick buildings, boarded up windows, abandoned places, and graffiti everywhere. Even the streets seem empty in comparison. Sure, a few civilians pass here and there, but it is far from that of New York and far from that of Chicago. A pair here, a pair there, and a hole-in-the-wall bar here and a hole-in-the-wall bar there. John is continuing to follow the directions that he has been given, further into the quote-unquote heart of Gary. Money does not seem to flow through these streets. But eventually, after you pass through the center, and you move to the east side of Gary, you pass Kowalski, a building that one wouldn't necessarily consider fancy in general, but here in Gary, sticks out. A 2-story, well-kept, white house among a row of other homes that are of similar ilk. One of those streets where all the homes are one of 3 or 4 different models that were all built around the 90s or so. But John continues to drive by. The reason this sticks out to you, because you are aware that this is one of the more public spaces that Prince Modius would spend his time. And the Modius was the name of the prince who ran Gary until he disappeared not too long ago.
John, slow down there. Over there, there's that house might have some significance, you might say.
John simply reaches in down to the side and near the dashboard, pulls out that piece of paper that has the address, and he hands it to Vera, and he continues to drive. That's not the address I was given. I apologize, Mr. Kowalski.
Sheesh.
Maybe more explanation, Bob?
Well, if you're interested in the print, I think he might have hung out there once or twice.
Oh, slow down a little bit, John. This might be interesting.
And on Vera's word, without hesitation, you can feel the vehicle immediately begin to slow and roll to a stop. Do you want him to stop and park?
Does it look like there's someone in it? Lights on? Is the mailbox overstuffed?
Mailbox is not overstuffed. The lights are off. However, the building is rather well maintained, even amongst other homes that seem inhabited. This one in particular seems to be kept extremely well. Even the lawn itself is trimmed down neatly compared to the others that are slightly overgrown.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but did Jackson not say that we were allowed to keep what was once the ex-princes while we work for him?
Bob might see that as a liberal interpretation of the prince's words, but she's not technically wrong.
I like where you're going with that. Yeah.
Knowing what assets might be at our disposal never hurt anything. Sean, you're good at breaking and entering.
I'm glad you noticed.
Would you mind taking just a quick peek? We could loop the block and pick you back up, but I am interested. Does it look lived in or held in some way? We are investigating the prince's disappearance after all, and may turn up a little and information we can offer back to our dear Prince Jackson.
Yeah, sure. You want to come with, Bob?
Sure, why not?
Is Bob a stealthy individual?
What do you think?
I mean, honestly, I could go either way with Bob. I could see it being either one. Both would make sense, but with that answer, I'm going to go with probably not.
He's got a little bit more under his sleeve than you'd think.
So as
he can be stealthy if necessary.
If the need arises, Bob has the ability to reach in. So The street lights slowly come to a pause as the camera pulls out of the van, and we see the van pull to the left, but the engine continues to run. John doesn't put it in park, and the side of the van rolls open with that definitive First to step out is Bob, looking like he belongs in Gary for the most part. And just as Sean's first foot leaves the van and touches the sidewalk, John immediately starts to drive without even worrying about Sean's second foot getting out. And you stumble. Yep, at your way out. As I imagine, Vera steps over, gives a polite wave, and slides the door shut.
We'll come back for you.
Leaving Sean and Bob at the end of the block where this house resides. If you just go to business and immediately start stealthing, I will need stealth rolls from the both of you. Dexterity stealth.
I say to Bob very quickly, okay, so I'm relying on you on this one. You know I just poke fun, right? I don't actually dislike you. Like, we're friends, okay?
Yeah.
We better split up.
When it's time for the mission, we're on the same team.
Okay, good. Because I don't want to get left alone.
Dex stealth rolls from the both of you, please.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Holy
crap. Christ, Bob.
Critical success.
Like I said, when necessary.
Sean, okay.
I'm going to re-roll that.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, do you want to...
There we go, that's two.
Two successes and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, something like that. Bob... Doesn't matter. It's a lot. You both immediately begin to walk down the sidewalk. Now, do you split? How do you both look to approach this small house? Again, to re-describe, so you have a good idea of how this is working. The house itself is one of like 4 or 5 on this particular block. The only reason it sticks out is because it's just slightly more well-kept than the rest, and Bob recognizes it from his years living in Chicago and trekking into Gary, Indiana over time. Do you split and go through backyards? I'm curious how you would approach a house on a block stealthily.
Yeah, I would think Bob would
start hopping fences, stay in the backyard kind of thing, or
yeah, and would you fully expect Bob to like struggle over a fence? He immediately just parkours over it like it's nothing. Like if anyone was watching, perhaps a neighborhood squirrel, it would be completely aghast at what it's seeing. Is that even a human? I mean, of course he's not, but his kindred skills on full display as he effortlessly jumps over a fence, hides under a bush, and stealths his way. Is there perhaps a basement, like a lead into the basement?
Yeah, there will be. We'll get to that in a moment. So, Sean, as you see, Kowalski kind of splits away from you, just like, yeah, don't worry about it. When the time for a job, we're friends. As he describes, like effortlessly leaps over a fence. All that Chicago Cubs and Bulls gear and all that stuff looks like it would make a lot of noise, jumping in, whipping in the wind or making crackling noises. But the way he carries himself, his posture, it's like he wears this gear as his second skin. And he understands its nuances and how to keep it quiet. And as he leaves the fence and goes behind a building, you lose track of him immediately. You can no longer hear him once you lose sight. Sean, what about you? How are you going to approach? Are you going for the front door? Are you going to try and go on the other side? Is there, I'm curious.
That man's the dark horse. So I'm going to go kind of round the side, find a window, make sure there's no one directly in the room, and then just pry it open. He's not being super subtle.
Okay, give me a wits awareness. Bob, as you get through the first few backyards, dipping from bushes to bushes or staying in one of the yards is a plastic playhouse that clearly has a family. It's a mess of fake cookware and plastic eggs and food all over the place. And there's a moment where a light goes on in the house and we see Bob have to quickly crouch and duck in this small plastic home. But that light, just as quickly as it went on, goes off and you're able to hop that last fence. And in the backyard, you do see those distinct double metal doors that are sunk into the ground, pressed up against the house, that, if unlocked, should lead directly to the basement of this home. And Bob, I imagine, approaches and even does a gentle pull to see, and unsurprisingly, they are locked. you could make an attempt. You are a kindred. While you may not be, like Maxwell and Nosferatu, who can punch a hole in anything that stands in his way, your strength is still that beyond a mortal's, and being able to pull this open is something you could attempt and very likely accomplish, but understanding that it comes with noise, that it will not be a quiet thing to do. And with so you got 4, and Sean, damn man, you having a rough go. Do you want to roll another? Would you like to roll another willpower?
Nah.
You gonna leave it at that? Yeah. So as you quickly as the camera follows Bob up to the cellar doors, it quickly blurs across the lawn. We see the grass whipping by as we make our way to the front of the house, and then to the opposite side, where Sean, unlike Bob, who is quietly moving through bushes and stealthily moving, Sean was just walking down the sidewalk, blending in, looking like a nonchalant individual, just strolling the streets, and you just made a turn when nobody was looking. You peer through the windows, walk by it a couple of times. You don't see anybody immediately, and as you reach for the window, it too is unsurprisingly locked. So, Bob, cellar doors are locked. What would you do here in this moment, if anything?
Could I try to pick the lock?
It would be a dexterity larceny check from Bob Kowalski.
Yeah. He's going to try to pick it.
Would you attempt to do the same thing for the window, Sean?
Oh, 100%. I got fancy new tools I need to try out.
You do. So please make that roll. That'll give you a +1, I imagine, on your roll, Sean.
Nice.
A difficulty?
For your door, 2.
Okay.
Sean, what is happening to you today, man?
I don't know, man.
I don't understand. I don't know what's happening. Would you like to use a willpower and re-roll 3?
No.
I'm
gonna
burn through all your willpower. Bob, does Bob have like tools that he uses to pick locks, or is it something does he have like something he made himself that he's been using on his own? I'm curious what kind of person Bob is, because you would have been given lock picking tools by Prince Jackson if that's something that Bob would request, but I don't know what kind of man Bob is.
Oh, he would have made them himself for sure.
Okay, so they look like homemade lock picks. You kind of fiddle through some of your tools, slide a thin metal sheet in between the double doors and kind of slide it up, leverage it while you slide in another one on the other side. And after a little fiddling, you can hear the inner metal bar slide off of its lock, and you hear a very light ka-chunk as it falls completely. And you can even, as you pull a door, you get a little burst of cool air as it escapes from the basement. And there is a warm orange glow deeper into the basement that seems to be lighting up whatever room may or may not be down there. And as Bob, feels that wind and that cool cellar air hits his face, we hard cut to the window where Sean, you wiggle around and try to get your new tools to work, but you're used to the stuff that you've been working with in New York, the leftovers that Vera was able to provide for you, or whatever you're able to steal off of a corpse that night. These are fine, gorgeous lockpick tools that you have no idea how to use, and you could figure it out, but you don't have the time to figure it out. Your kindred are going a block around before they pick you up. So, in this moment, do you leave the window, or do you just break it?
No. I'm getting in there, and I'll find out what's in there.
Okay, all right.
I lose patience, and I'm going to... He's learned a new trick.
He has, I'm sure, many times.
He's going to use this useless tool. He's just going to get one of the picks and just kind of jam it into his finger and smear blood on the latch, like keeping it closed, and use corrosive vitae.
Amazing. Now, for those who aren't aware of what corrosive vitae is, because...
And that one, he succeeds.
Yes, you do not get hungrier. For those who do not know, because you are a clan that has not really been examined beyond NPCs, what does corrosive vitae do? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, I imagine, but you just...
Yeah. No, he turns his blood into a not super strong, but still strong enough acid, able to corrode all sorts of simple materials. Not very good in a fight, but very useful overall. Yeah.
And we see that frustration on Sean's face. He's wiggling around with these new tools. We can hear the glass warbling a little bit in the wooden frame that as he presses up against it. But another thing he does seems to push the latch into open, and maybe a few huffs and sighs as muscle memory habit, even though you no longer truly breathe, Sean, as a full kindred. We see you perhaps just by instinct in that moment. The blood thickens and there's this almost innate instinctual drive. You know the blood is telling you your beast urges to not give up. There's something you can do here. What is beyond these windows isn't for anyone's eyes but your own. Whatever's through this window belongs to you. And your beast is going to ensure you get to see that. In that frustration, as you say, you grab your lockpicks, jam them through your finger at the base where the first knuckle meets. In frustration, you rip it out. And in that blood, thick kindred vitae splashes about an inch in front. And it falls on that metallic lock in the wooden frame. And you can hear a very small, faint hiss as your vitae hitting the metal and wood slowly turns to an oily black. Small bubbles pop forward. And as it drips away, clearing and cleaning where you put it, so too does the lock, left in its place, a rusted stump of what it once was, and what wood surrounded it rotted away.
No more mistakes.
The window.
I'm gonna pop it open with the pry bar and slide inside.
The window slides open with ease, and Sean quickly slips inside. And as the camera follows you, passing through the wall and this profile shot, as the wall blocks our vision and we come to the other side, what we see is Bob on the bottom of the stairs, quietly moving down. Give me a wits awareness, Bob. I'm gonna maintain your stealth check for now as it was so freaking high. I mean, 2 successes is fine. In Vampire, I think, I can't remember if I told you this rule, but you can spend a willpower and re-roll 3 of the dice that you failed, as long as they're not hunger dice, which you are not. Would you like to spend a willpower and re-roll 3 of those, or are you fine with 2?
Bob's confident, so he's going to keep it as it is.
He keeps it as it is, and there's a moment as he reaches the bottom of the stairs. Bob, we see in that low orange warm glow, presses back up against the wall. He takes a few moments, listens for breathing, perhaps footsteps, but he hears nothing. Peers around the corner quietly, and what you see before you is a typical unfinished basement. Part of the basement itself has a concrete floor where there's a bench in the back and a few other piles of papers. But for the most part, this all seems to be storage. Cardboard boxes haphazardly markered with letters or numbers you're unsure as to the organization. I imagine Bob does like a cursory walk around the room just to take a look.
Sure.
Okay. Bob, how long have you been in Chicago now? What year did Bob show up in Chicago initially?
Oh, 86.
Okay. Bob, as you wander through here, you see actually over in that workbench newspaper clippings, older newspapers, not from the late 80s, but the early 90s. And it's positive spin pieces on Gary. Lots of them about money being brought back into the city, jobs for its citizens going up, and even the potential hope that maybe one day Gary will see the boom that it once had back when the steel mill industry was at its highest. There's, and like I said, these are all from the early 90s. Now you remember at this time, Modius was running Gary. But before Modius had Gary, Gary was a part of Chicago. It was part of the kindred domain of Chicago. And it wasn't until 1992, I believe, where after the large event that removed the head prince of Chicago at the time, that's when Modius made his move and sought Praxis, which is princedom, and Gary. And in that time, the Camarilla Council granted that to him. And Gary, Indiana became independent as Modius made the move. And here in these newspaper clippings, as you look at the dates and read through them, they're right at that time, very shortly after Modius ascended to princedom. There is within probably about a 6 to 12 months time frame amongst these clippings. However, to further point it out, it also seems that these newspaper clippings haven't moved in a long time. A very fine layer of dust sits around all of it, and no fingerprints or obvious footsteps have come and gone, leaving dirt markings on the on the finished part of the basement. Just little moments and little pieces of Gary's potential future as a bustling little city, a part of Chicago. However, clearly that never came to be.
Didn't turn out that way.
No. Do you grab any of these? Does Bob leave things as they are? I'm curious if Bob would do anything else as he kind of goes about this.
I don't think he would grab those. I think he would just assess the room in general and then see where the stairs lead up to the main house.
Yep.
Like, has anyone been in this room at all?
I mean, there is a low orange light from a single light bulb that dangles from a wire off the beams of the top of the ceiling of the floor. But from what you can look at, if there was anybody down here, it's been a few weeks at least, since anybody's been down here. Yeah, you haven't. It doesn't look like anybody's been down here recently. And the stairs leading up into the house are simply on the other side of where the stairs from outside lead in, and they lead up to a very plain white door that is locked from your side. And so you can quickly unlock it. And we'll cut from you there to Sean, whose feet now just hit the rug. And you slowly and quietly lower the window behind you. Wits awareness.
Okay. Slightly better at this than last season, but only slightly. There we go.
Oh, I was looking at the wrong thing. Oh, hey, Sean, thank God. You rolled all successes. As the window quietly shuts behind you and you start making steps through the room, you realize you're in just a rather plain, what you would assume is a guest bedroom. There's a mirror on top of a bureau, a double bed over in the corner, and not much else to decorate or otherwise very white, sterile room. Now, where does Sean want to go? Again, there are 2 floors to this house, a first and a second. You have, as you popped in, you probably have, Sean is aware, he probably has like 5 minutes at most.
Yeah. Normally most important things are in offices and the like, and they are normally first level, but also people have keepsakes upstairs. I'm not trying to rob this person, so he's going to go for whatever looks like an office on probably the first floor.
So as you make your way through this little guest room and start walking through hallways, you realize this place probably has somewhere around, well, there's 2 bedrooms on the bottom. There's probably at least 1 on the top, maybe 2, a relatively decently sized family home. But it's the moment you step into the hallway and start creeping down to the next door on your left to see what it is, you actually can hear what sounds like not footsteps, not a voice, but ruffling through, like a sound of rustling coming from one of the rooms, a drawer that seems to have just been pulled open. You could hear the wood clack onto it, or something sounds like it got moved very, very gently. Sean, with what you can hear, it sounds like they're attempting, whoever these people are may be attempting to be quiet, but you can hear them. And Bob, can I get a wits awareness from you? As you creep that basement door open, you may be hearing very similar things.
I think Sean's going to go directly towards the...
So as this door on your left comes up and you hear that, we see Sean pause in his footsteps. His eyes go from the door straight up and he just kind of takes in the noise. And we can see that decision-making on his face. The hesitation then leads to a footstep to pass the door instead of opening it. And as Bob Kowalski opens that door, you're on the opposite end of that same hallway. As you take your first steps up and you open, you could see a figure moving down the hall, but it doesn't take long before the low light gives way that it is Sean creeping forward. And before you, you can also hear rustling noise in a room coming from your left, Bob. It would be Sean's right. It's your first door on your left and Sean's last door on his right. You each point at each other, kind of gesture where the sound is coming from. You both come up on the same, you come up on the 2 sides of the door flanking it. You're both making military movements and
military hand signs.
How do you go about, what do you do? When you both approach the door, you're both there quietly, successfully as stealth. You can still hear movement rustling around. Another drawer opens, and you think you might hear something if clattered to the ground. It sounds like maybe it was like silverware or something.
Yeah, Sean's gonna put his hand on the doorknob and just be like 3, 2, 1, and then opens it like quickly as possible.
And you do so, and the door is unlocked. Whoever this person was didn't think to lock it, and you swing the door wildly open. It slams up against the wall as you kind of step in, and what you see is an office, Sean. What you were hoping to find in the first place, except half ramshacked through and searched through already. A figure sat on the other side of this relatively small room, is hunched down on one knee. You can only see the top of their head and their blonde hair, and they're underneath the desk that sits in the center. And they're clearly going through a drawer. And as you swing the door open, do you slam it against the wall, or do you just kind of swing the door open and try to like?
He keeps his handle on the handle and like opens it as wide as he can for Bob to go in first.
Okay.
But he's not like slamming it open.
Okay, cool. So they
trying to be
this
stealthy-ish.
person, man or woman, you can't tell, is not even paying attention to you. They are continuing, and you see this as well, Bob. This figure on the other side of a desk in a room where the lights are off. The only light being given is that from the outside street light, enough to see. But they're on their knee, like one knee, going through something in a drawer on a desk.
Oh, I yell, "Chicago's in the house!" And I jump on him.
So we just give me a strength brawl check as you surprise attack this person. They only have, because they're not aware of this is coming, they only get 1 d10 to try and defend here.
So I make my difficulty
My
1.
roll? Yeah, you can just roll it, and yeah, I
Or-
failed my
okay.
roll, so it's not a big deal. Yeah, you still beat me. I didn't. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
So, are you trying to like do damage or just pin them down and like grapple them essentially?
Just surprise the hell out of them. What are you doing in
So
here?
we see. You say that as you rush them
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
leap at them, and they're stunned or startled. And as their eyes meet yours, there's not enough time for them to defend themselves. You're too close by then. And so you're able to put your foot on them and push them over. A few papers spill out of their hands. And we see Bob's foot on the neck or chest. How would Bob like hold somebody down but not do it in a way that's like, your whole body?
Oh no, I'd use my whole body.
Oh, okay, cool. So we see
Yeah, I'd
as he kinda
tackle him
pushes
basically.
over.
Tackle him.
Yeah, we see Bob
Blob.
fall. I don't know why I
Blob.
said blob, dude. I don't know why blob came out of my mouth. I really
You
don't
just
know
got
why.
Blah.
We see Bob rush tackle this individual, and they clatter to the ground, papers spilling. And there's like a surprise as you see that you are looking at a young man that has a short blonde hair, slightly ruffled and messy, with very piercing blue eyes. They stare up at you, concerned. Worry certainly sits in their face, but they don't say anything because they are just taken by surprise. Sean, you see Bob leap in and pin this person. Do you do anything?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna walk up to them, point the pry bar in their face, and snatch the papers out of their hand.
Oh, the
better listen
papers
to him.
spilled out of their hands when Bob tackled them. So
I'm gonna pick up what they were
So you start
previously
scooping up
holding.
papers and kind of pushing it all together, grabbing what you can. There's quite a bit, 15, 20 pages of stuff that they were going through here.
You better listen to Chicago over here.
The person's eyes dart back and forth between Sean and Bob.
Bob, it's all yours, and I start.
Yeah, they don't
looking-
say anything, waiting for somebody to say something as they kind of
Chicago
scene
style's the best. Listen. Who are you? What are you
there's-
doing here?
I could say the same of you. Who are you? What are you doing here? I haven't seen your faces here before.
That's not really important.
Don't worry
seeing
about
as
us.
We've got you in a chokehold.
I'm not saying you don't have me in a very advantageous position. I'm just...
Then answer the question. I start going through things.
What's it to you? As you start flipping through these papers, the person, just says, what's it to you?
That's for us
What are you
to
going to
know.
do, kill me?
Maybe.
He shakes his head. There's a moment where he looks like, with his eyes breaking away from you, there's a moment where he seems to chew on a thought, and he's like, You know you can't. That's against the law. The prince will have your fucking head.
Okay, then
you
we'll
haven't heard.
seriously maim you to 1 inch of your life.
I mean, that's literally. I mean, that's Kendrick can do that. That's totally fair.
Completely legal.
As that threat, blasts from Bob's lips, our camera blurs. We're at the front of the house at the street, and we see the van pull up to the front. This time, as the van pulls up, Vera and Duke, you do see there's a light actually on in there now. However, you do not see Bob or Sean, and John slowly slows the van down. Miss Vera, what should I do now?
Oh, just turn it off and wait for them. I should have known with Sean at the lead. It wouldn't be an easy task.
You feel the van kind of rumble as he turns it off, and he goes, I could have advised you on that, Miss Vera. Sean has...
Yes, well, everybody gets a second chance, John.
How many get a 10th?
Only Sean.
So it seems.
Duke, you are palpably quiet.
Yes, I am.
Would you like to, now in the solitude of this classy van, tell me what it is that troubles you?
I don't know if it troubles me as much, Vera. As much as it might be a little leading, interesting information.
Oh?
I discovered a pipeline.
Hopefully to our benefit. Oh. Money?
Yes.
Pipeline?
Money. A financial pipeline running from New York, from our old stomping ground even, leading all the way out here to Gary. I am a bit worried, however. How do you feel about firearms?
Well, they're not my preferred choice of weaponry, but they get the job done, I guess. A bit barbaric, I'd say. Very American.
Are you familiar with Iron Eagle arms?
For Vera, it's a name you've come across before because they're just such a huge name in the firearm industry in this world.
I mean, as far as a brand name goes, sure, they produce weaponry.
Yes, weapons manufacturer. They have operated quite largely in New York. We've seen many of their weapons be distributed across the continental United States. Additionally, much of that plays similarly in Chicago. I was very interested to find that it had ties here in Gary as well. Higher than not, considering the population of this place is less than 70,000. Additionally, there was a funnel tied specifically to a mob trail that I had followed through New York. They were a host family to the lupine that we came across.
Interesting. Well, I feel like getting caught up in lupine business the first night we're in town is a sure way to... Well, sure, we don't get to stay in town for very long. Are they lupine funding it?
As far as you're aware, Duke, the lupine involvement is simply on the organized criminal side. On the Iron Eagle side, you don't have any evidence that there's any lupines there.
No real evidence exactly which way the money is funneling itself, just ties at the moment, ties to a mob family. I do find Gary interesting, however, Vera. It's, when we look at Chicago is seen by Jackson as this bustling and thriving city, a cornucopia, if you will, of success. And here we have Gary, this absolute mess of a city. It's like a satellite of failure. I'm very interested in discovering why it is this way, why this part of the Rust Belt continues to find some funds cycling through here. I suppose it might have more ties to gang affiliation than not, but this place has been in urban decay since the 50s, and due to deindustrialization, economic decline, population loss, they've suffered quite a lot.
And even as Duke says that, your beast stirs slightly. While logically, you certainly can't place direct ties between those in New York and those here. Your beast has a tendency to feel very certain about things. And in this moment, the beast rouses as though it is mad, angered, that you even doubt yourself. You know how capable you are. But it's not a strong feeling, it's not an overwhelming feeling, but it's notable. Here, I apologize. I know I think you were going to respond to Duke, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, the Drac Pack has been known in the past to take in a degenerate type or two. Why not adopt a city?
I'm simply here for the ride. Anticipated our comforts being in a different dwelling, something much flashier. I had earnestly divined, and created that position for you to thrive, a place for me to dwell in that interim.
Well, how very kind of you, Duke. I imagine we all plan to thrive a little bit, but plans change. If there's one thing I've learned over 100 years, it is that very simple concept. I'm interested in finding out where the last prince got his funds. You don't become prince of a city and simply have no backer. Was he independently wealthy? Was he part of this little weapons scheme? If we can find his money, I imagine we can find the ties to his death as well.
Can you please, Duke, give me an intelligence academics roll?
Certainly. It's not a bad roll for me.
No.
5
Five
successes.
successes again.
Wow.
Again, you get this role, and only you get this role, because before moving to Chicago, we know Duke spent months and months and months researching, reading. And you have vague memory of reading that when Modius ascended, it very similarly to Bob, though maybe not as many details, it was at a time where Gary was splitting from Chicago. Jackson bringing it up when you met with him, and now being in Gary yourself, it all stirs that memory. It was one of the earliest things you were able to glean about the kindred politics in Chicago, that when Chicago became destabilized decades ago, that's when Gary became a truly independent Camarilla city under Modius.
Well, Modius hasn't exactly been a fresh lick. He's been around for quite a while. I don't actually know if he's dead. I presume it would be a mistake if we were to presume that he was dead. Where he might be, it's not yet for me to determine. However, I know that he reaped some of the benefits of the destabilization of Chicago. Now that he's moved here, and since he had been prince, I'm guessing, between the practices that he's learned in his old blood and the destabilization of Chicago, he was able to reap some benefits. And if given enough line to run, I can find out where his money had come from, where it was going, and how we can tap into that.
I was about to say, and what's left of it, yes. I want to know if there's anything sitting idly. If nothing else, we'll claim it under Prince Jackson, and then use it to our own benefit. Speaking of Prince Jackson's money, since he has purchased the hotel, you know better than I since you are the paperwork man, but I imagine he has moved ownership in a proper way. Oh, that simply means that he would have taken on all the financial responsibility as well. I'm interested in starting a little bit of a hole, you might say, a drip in his cash flow. I'd like the hotel over time to not benefit him. I want him to give it back to us. And then we can do as we see fit and bring it back up to proper standard. But if we make it a problem, it'll be much easier to take off his hands later.
There's actually a reason that I chose that particular hotel. The Blackstone has been long running in disarray for quite a while. In the early 2000s, it required several $1 million in repairs that were neglected. They hired shortcomings that left them owing significantly more.
And I may say,
it's an interesting project.
In the past 48 hours, in the quick research Duke has done, it's not hard. You can ask Kindred of other Ventru, of course. You're well aware as well that even recently as about 2 to 3 weeks ago, the head of the Luciano family died unexpectedly. And that hotel and its ownership and whatnot became even more unstable, even though you were legally of papers owning it. As you said, that place once belonged to the Luciano. the Luciano family.
Needless to say, Vera, things are in a bit of a shake-up, and movement is tricky at the moment. There is far more money on the table than not, and I couldn't even guess. It's probably in the dozens of millions of dollars.
Good. I wanted to bleed him dry just a little bit.
From
That
my
way he
understanding,
thinks it's a horrible thing to hand it over to us in the end. We need to be prepared to take on such responsibility, of course, but it shouldn't be an issue when we have a good cash flow. I'll say something about this city. Where there is crime and poverty, there's also a lot of money to be made.
it's going to require quite a bit more work than not if we wish to destabilize his flow. Are you familiar with the stories of King Midas?
Oh, I'm sure. It's locked away somewhere in this old brain. But I do love it when you regale me with a story, Duke.
Let's just say that King Midas had quite a bit of money. He was regarded as one of the wealthiest individuals ever. I think Jackson has enough money funneling in and out of him at this point that it might make King Midas blush. There's a lot of work to destabilize that infrastructure financially. I'm not saying that I wouldn't try, but it's going to require a lot of time.
What is the likelihood of a small side venture? Something under the radar? A cost that we can attach on to the hotel and bleed him of money into our cause? A couple decimal moves here and there, an expense on a piece of new roofing that gets billed to another business. Technically, it is him funding this endeavor in Gary, Indiana, and we simply move it from the hotel expenses. If he is as liquid as you say.
How do you feel about ghouling a few more individuals? Because I believe it's possible that you could ghoul a subcontracting team with experience in architecture and realignment of the infrastructure of the building, and it would seem far more valuable to let the project go, even if it weren't completely accurate.
Interesting. This is a possibility. I'm not very fond of ghouls, as they are called, but after 100 years, it was time. I've left Lyle to watch the hotel from afar. If there's one thing that he is good at, it is watching, learning, and stalking. I want to know how invested Jackson is, or if it really is just a playing chip.
The Blackstone is a very old facility. It's been around for a long time. It has quite a storied tie to Chicago itself. Very, very close to crime. You know, historically, there aren't very many recorded deaths on premise. It's been strucken from the record. There's some things about it that still go left untold, and I thought that we would thrive in this position. Taking something like this, you know how I feel about losing my previous home. There was something about that room that I felt quite attached to. I lost energy.
Well, you haven't lost it entirely, Duke. Vera reaches into her handbag, which she doesn't usually carry, but we're traveling. Probably black leather or shiny Versace. And she pulls out a pair of ballerina slippers. Some people would say that buildings are haunted. Other people would say that items are haunted. I thought maybe when we get settled, you could, put some haunted ballerina slippers up, and maybe they'd come back to you.
Despite what people had said, despite how Sean felt about that room and how you felt about that room, I spent a great deal of time there, and without regard, though I was typically alone physically, I rarely felt that way. There was something nice about it, not feeling so alone.
Well, don't get your panties in a wad, Duke. I imagine that Gary, Indiana's gonna have more than just a few hauntings, and you're never alone, Duke. Not since the moment you tried to blackmail me.
As that sassy retort and recollection of history is put forward, and we see the ballerina slippers dangling from her fingers as they're presented to Duke. The camera is slowly zooming on simply those ballerina slippers as the music quietly fades and all sound, including Vera's voice, become mute. We see Duke's hand fall under them, and just as the tips of the toes of the ballerina slippers touch the palm of Duke's hand, we hard cut. We see hands on a leg, struggling, actually trying to fight you off, Bob. But it doesn't take long for you to pin this guy back to the ground, and he fucking sighs and spits. Fucking fine. Fine. I tell you what I'm doing here, right? And what? You tell me what you're doing here, and we both can go our separate ways? We're both breaking and entering. We're both, acting a little bit under the legal limit. Does that make sense? Listen, I don't just...
Yeah, sure. You talk now. I don't have to stake you and talk to you later, because we got places to be.
And this guy's gonna leave me the fuck alone too? Maybe? As he points to Bob, who's pinning him down.
Chicago?
I mean, I'm not an unflexible person.
Fine. I'll take my goddamn chances then. All right. I'm sure we're all here for the same reason. Yeah, the visionary, right? We're all after the bounty.
Bounty.
Yeah.
How much is the bounty? Because we've heard different things.
Okay, so both of you no idea what the fuck I'm talking about, and I've already said too much.
Yeah, fine. What's the visionary, dude?
A book, as far as I know. Somebody, Malk, is looking for it and willing to pay a lot of money for it. And that is my ticket to get the fuck out of Gary, Indiana. And he gives you like a wry smile.
It's fair enough.
I figure what better place to look than one of the prince's old haunts. He ain't been seen for a while. I'm not robbing a tomb that ain't already been robbed.
Okay. Yeah, we were just kind of having a look around Prince's old place. We're moving in, you see. So,
into this one?
No.
The area.
The area in general.
But
if you're sticking around, it'd be good to have a friend.
Well,
who also appreciates breaking and entering.
He kind of like rolls his eyes a little bit. Well, you're supposed to introduce yourself to the prince when you arrive, but I don't know if you know. No prince.
Mm-hmm.
Things a little bit anarchic out here. That's actually really funny. The anarchs don't have a fucking leader either.
Nah.
Things are just crazy out here, all right? Name's Garrett, and he reaches. He would reach forward to shake your hand, but he just can't. He just says, "Name's Garrett."
Garrett from Gary?
Garrett from Gary, yeah. I ain't heard that one before, Bob. He doesn't know your name. I ain't heard that one before.
Hey,
Garrett,
it's new to me.
With two T's. You got it? Don't forget it.
Garrett from Gary.
Right, okay.
I don't... something in my head tells me that Vera wouldn't like that too much. I don't know. Just I get a wild feeling.
His eyes kind of go dart back and forth. So we listen, I've kind of gone top to bottom. Spoilers, there ain't much here. I was going through the papers you're holding. I didn't get to finish those. But, you're welcome to search the house, but I'm just trying to do you a favor and save you some time.
Yeah, cheers.
If you want to help me find the book, though, maybe we could split the bounty up.
That's a soft maybe.
They're paying $100,000 for this thing.
Oh, why would we bother then?
$100,000? I'm sorry. Are you a Ventru that lives in Chicago?
Yeah.
Because
I'm
not. So then he kind of gestures down. He's like, I'm not one of you. And if you say, yeah, actually I am. He's like, well, yeah, sorry. That's just pennies to you, I guess.
What's in the book?
No idea. It's just they want it. They've been looking for it.
Some milk. All right. Cheers. Sean, if you want to find me, maybe knock on the door this time. Look in the prince's other establishments.
Same goes for you. Knock on the door next time, and maybe we won't have this issue. And he looks over to you, Bob, and he's like, "Do I get the luxury of your name?"
Bob Kowalski.
Wow, you really are from out here, aren't you?
Yeah.
He looks to you up and down with that name. Why do I? And he kind of he feels uneasy as he looks to Bob, who almost gives him a half-hearted, jovial attitude. you can actually just read it on his face, Bob, how he suddenly becomes very uncomfortable, that you don't seem to be as willing to step off of him as Sean seems to be willing to step away. And he kind of almost barters further. Unless there's something else you want, I would like to just get the hell out of your hair for the night. You're not thinking about killing me, are you? I know that fucking face.
Oh, I'm thinking about it. Believe me.
Oh, God. Please, look.
Because you know what? You told me there's no prince here. So,
and there's that moment where there's a genuine realization on his face. And he clearly didn't even think about it. And he's just, listen. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You could. And what do I got? How can I help? How can I help you achieve your task so that you let me leave alive tonight? What do you need done? What are you here for? Why are you here? So you're not here for the book. Then why are you here?
We're here for our own reasons. Okay. The likes of which we don't need to reveal to you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Freaking political garbage. Can I help you to get away with my life? Or am I staring my death in the eyes in this moment? And this isn't nice. This is the end.
Look,
could use an extra hand, Bob.
It's not up to me. I think, Sean, we need to
yeah, let's introduce him to the rest of the Drac Pack.
No. It's up to you. Like, you could let me go and not even tell whoever the hell the other person is that you met me.
That's not an option.
You got to go with the flow, man.
That's not an option.
Yeah. Okay. We've got a new friend, Garrett.
Yeah.
You're going to help us tonight. Come with me.
I don't know how I'm going to. Okay. And he, like, as you say, come with me, and Bob probably yanks him by the shirt up to his feet. He stands at like a 5'2". He's very short. And he follows in his jeans and in a plain white t-shirt that actually has a faded logo of Baby Chorus on it. And he follows the two out, I imagine, the front door. Or do you go out the basement back end?
Oh yeah, the basement would probably work best.
Yeah, it'd be easier to, because as Bob leads you to the basement and through, Sean, you would get a quick look at the similar things that I described, though you wouldn't have time to go look at exactly what those newspaper clippings are. And as you round around the house, John turns to Vera. Miss Vera, Sean and Mr. Kowalski and a third individual have returned. As you peer out the window.
Oh, so it did have someone on the inside.
As you peer out the window, you see this individual flanked by Sean and Bob. And just as the side door to the van rolls open, as it clicks into place, our screen goes black. And we'll return next week with the next episode. Goodbye, everybody.